The communique of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank and the following briefing by the Central Bank Governor, Godwin Emefiele, has continued to generate comments and analysis. And joining me now to widen that conversation around some of the key aspects of yesterday's briefing is Dr. Franklin Ngwu. He's an associate professor of strategy, finance, and risk management. Dr. Ngwu is also the director in charge of the Sustainability Center at the Lagos Business School. Dr. Ngwu, it's good to see you. Good evening. Welcome to the program.
Good evening, Boston, and thank you for having me.
Give me your takeaways from yesterday's monetary policy meeting conclusions.
From what we heard from the MPC, what he's saying is that using so many factors, inflation, rising oil price, second wave of coronavirus, and vaccine being available, it means that the central bank is saying, let's leave the rates the way it is for now, so that at the end of the day, let the economy grow out of the recession that we have, and also let inflation be moderated. So that's basically the summary of what we can take from yesterday. That's why they left all the rates the way it is and left the interest rate still at 11.5%.
Do you agree with those positions by the MPC?
I think for now, I think it's good in terms of leaving the rates the way they are to allow the economy to grow a little bit out of recession. But however, other aspects of what they've decided to do, there are issues about it. So a typical example is the way the position of the CBN to continue to intervene in different sectors of the economy.
Well, the Monetary Policy Committee asked the Central Bank to continue those strategic sector interventions in the face of weak fiscal position of the government at the center. Do you agree with that? And if not, what are your positions?
I think that given the circumstances that we have, that is the coronavirus, the impact on the economy and all that, interventions might be are necessary. But the question is it sustainable? And the answer is no, it is not sustainable. And the question also is that we've been doing this for many years now. So it wasn't about coronavirus that caused the intervention. So CBN has been doing that. So, and the question we have to ask again is, what is then the role of the fiscal authority? So CBN is performing both fiscal policies and also the monetary policies. So it's not sustainable. And of course, you know, in economies like India, it's normally for 3 months. Let's understand that the ways and means through which the CBN is giving money to the government is more or less like an overdraft. So they give you, you pay back when you are in a difficult situation. They give you again, and you have to pay back. So the question we are supposed to ask again is the government paying back the money that the CBN is giving to the government? And from all indications, we are not being told that they are paying back. So the question is, how long will this last? And is it now a kind of a permanent policy of the central bank? So there's something that they call forward guidance in monetary policy. Forward guidance is that the CBN clearly tells the economy, clearly tells the private sector in terms of some of their policies, so that it will guide them in terms of the decisions that they're going to make. So, but in terms of continuous intervention in the economy, I think it, as I said before, is important at this time because of the negative impact of coronavirus. But in terms of the sustainability of those policies, I'm not sure it's appropriate.
Doctor, do you think that the central bank is trying all it could and it needs the fiscal authorities to fire the second engine of the economy before the central bank gets itself broken?
Exactly. That's what's supposed to be. So normally, in every economy, you talk about the monetary policy, which is supposed to be handled by the central bank. Then you also talk about the fiscal policy. There's also a third policy, a third leg, which is the supply side policy. But even if we focus on the two policies, so the CBN is doing its best in terms of handling the monetary policy. So what is required is for the fiscal authorities to also complement the efforts of the CBN to address certain aspects of the economy so that the economy can start growing.
Okay, so that brings me to the next question about what critical decisions that you are looking forward to on the side of the government or the fiscal authorities to address some of those domestic risk factors, what we call structural issues in 2021.
So you find out that in terms of fiscal policies, you look at revenue and expenditure of the government. So the first thing is, what can the government do to expand revenue? And what can the government do also in terms of looking at the expenditure? And there are many things to do. So, but if you look at it from a risk perspective, KPMG published a report in terms of the 10 top risks that we're going to face in 2021. Some of these risks include regulatory risk, governance risk, political risk. So if the government, and insecurity as well. So a key area that we're talking about is the level of insecurity in Nigeria. So interestingly and commendably, President Buhari has appointed new service chiefs. So it is expected that these new service chiefs should address the issues of security better than what we have now. So that will really help, particularly the agricultural sector, so that the farmers can return to farm, so that we can actually start producing. Of course, if you remember, so the food inflation is very high. So that will help us to address that kind of issue. Then in terms of issues of increasing revenue, so that's another area that the government needs to properly look into to see how they can expand the revenue. And there are so many things that they can do to expand the revenue of the government.
What suggestions do you have? Let's talk about your area now in terms of government intervention or support for research and development. The central bank talked about some interventions for R&D in healthcare, in pharmaceuticals, in drug making, all along the corridor of the current pandemic. But what about higher level of learning, such as the Lagos Business School?
And there are so many areas I believe that the government should actually invest more on research and development, and there are so many areas that the government can look into. So a typical example is commission a report, which LBS will be happy to collaborate and do with other people. Let's look at the health sector, for example. So let's look at the pharmaceutical sector and say, what are the gaps in terms of what we have now and what we are supposed to have? So we can look into it. Another issue is, for example, we talked about the CBN intervention policies. So let's look at it and clearly investigate or examine how sustainable these kind of policies will be. A third one will be, okay, federal government is controlling so many things. So let's properly examine in terms of devolution of powers. So if we move certain items like mining sector, like state police, and move it from the exclusive list to the concurrent list, what will be the impacts on the economy? Will it lead to higher GDP growth? Will it lead to higher revenue? Will it lead to reduction in insecurity, and other factors? So there are so many areas. But the question again is not really about commissioning the research or doing the study. We also need a commitment from the federal government, from the state government, that when these studies are done, that it will be used and implemented. So of course, you know, in different governments, even in this present government, there have been publications on different areas, on different issues. So the question is, when the studies are completed, that the government will committedly execute them.
Dr. Franklin Ngwu, we thank you so much, Associate Professor of Strategy, Finance and Risk Management at the Lagos Business School. We thank you for your time this evening.